Did you know the month of February actually has the biggest holiday in the United States? It's Linsanity Day. What is Linsanity Day? Well, it's the anniversary of the start of one of the greatest months of basketball in NBA history. Now, the term Linsanity was coined to the former NBAer Jeremy Lin, who had a stretch of games where he played out of his mind. And if you don't know what the word Linsanity actually means, it's basically a sudden enthusiasm or excitement for an unknown player in any sport. So today, in honor of Jeremy Lin's holiday, I found 3 college basketball players who had Linsanity moments over the years, with our first starting in the early 2000s. Quick, name the 2002 national champion in college basketball. If you didn't say Maryland, then you are not alone. But believe it or not, Maryland basketball actually won a title in the 21st century. And just 2 years later, the program experienced an even more unforgettable moment. Not a championship season, not a dynasty, their Linsanity moment. Now, after that championship season, Maryland fell back to earth. The next season was underwhelming, and by the time the 03-04 season rolled around, expectations were low. This was just a young team. 8 of Maryland's top 9 scorers were either freshmen or sophomores. But the sophomore leading the charge that season was guard John Gilchrist. Gilchrist was Maryland's leading scorer at 15.4 points per game, solid, reliable, but nothing about this season screams star. In fact, entering March 3rd, Maryland sat at 14-11 with just 2 regular season games left. Their season was hanging by a thread. And then, everything changed. The Linsanity started. Gilchrist and the team took on 16th ranked NC State on the road. Before the game started, Gilchrist wasn't named a starter for Maryland against NC State as he was late for a team meeting earlier in the week. Instead of sulking, Gilchrist caught fire, scoring 15 points off the bench in the first half to have Maryland lead 44-34. The second half tightened up, and with 5 minutes left, the game was tied 62-62. Gilchrist had gone quiet since halftime. Then, he took over. A wide open dunk, another basket in transition, 2 clutch free throws. Maryland clung to a 70-69 road win, and Gilchrist finished with 21 points. It didn't feel historic yet, but the switch had been flipped. In the final regular season game against Virginia, Gilchrist had his worst statistical game of this run. Just 6 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists, shooting 40%. But he did something just as important. He helped lead the comeback. Maryland exploded for 43 second-half points, secured the win, and locked in the 6th seed in the ACC tournament. Maryland opened the tournament against Wake Forest, led by a freshman named Chris Paul. With 42 seconds left, Maryland was up 86-81. Then Paul scored 5 straight points to tie the game. With 13 seconds remaining and the season on the line, Gilchrist drove hard to the basket and drew a foul. He made his first free throw, Wake Forest called timeout, and Gilchrist purposely missed the second shot. The Demon Deacons scrambled for the rebound before they wafted up a last-second shot that didn't come close, securing a Maryland 87-86 win. Gilchrist won the game, and he finished with 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists, going 4 for 4 from the three-point line. Next up, a rematch with NC State. This time, things looked over early. NC State led 45-26 at halftime, nearly a 20-point deficit. Maryland looked finished, and then John Gilchrist happened. Maryland stormed back, tying the game 55-55 with just under 13 minutes left, where Gilchrist couldn't miss. He scored 23 of his 30 points in the second half, shooting 11 from 13 from the floor. Maryland completed the largest comeback in ACC tournament history, winning 85-82. Once again, Gilchrist was the man Maryland needed at the end of the game, trailing 77-74 versus Duke. Gilchrist made an and-one layup with 20 seconds left to push the game to 77-76, as well as making his free throw, which did force overtime. In overtime, Gilchrist scored 4 of Maryland's 18 points to bring home the ACC championship, the team's first in over 20 seasons, with Gilchrist winning the tournament MVP after leading the team to 3 straight upsets. Sadly, this is where our Linsanity run ends. Because in the NCAA tourney, Maryland lost in the second round. Across 2 games, Gilchrist averaged just 12 points. The magic was done, but that moment, that lives forever. Our second player on this list wasn't a fan favorite. He was a villain, one of the most infamous and polarizing players in college basketball history. And in 2013, Marshall Henderson turned that reputation into one of the wildest Linsanity runs the sport has ever seen. Henderson in the 12-13 season was looking like a very solid player, averaging 19.1 points per game, and led the Rebels to a record of 17-2, putting the team in the national spotlight. But by late January, everything began to unravel. From January 29th to February 20th, Ole Miss went just 2-5. Losses piled up, momentum vanished, and their NCAA tournament hopes were suddenly in serious danger. Then our Linsanity story starts with just 5 regular season games left. Game 1 against Auburn set the tone. Ole Miss blew out Auburn 88-55, and Henderson put on a shooting clinic, 28 points, knocking down 8 threes. Next came Texas A&M. Another win, another strong night from Henderson. Then came the one stumble, a loss to Mississippi State, where Henderson was held to just 16 points. But instead of slowing down, he responded. 24 points against Alabama and 22 points against LSU. Ole Miss finished the regular season 23-8. Those 5 games and the start of his Linsanity run didn't just save the season. It helped Ole Miss secure the 3 seed in the SEC Conference Tourney after owning the tiebreaker over Alabama. Ole Miss opened the SEC tournament against Missouri, and early on, it looked like the run might end before it started. The Rebels trailed 31-24 at halftime. Things got worse when Missouri pushed the lead to 14 early in the second half. Ole Miss was fading. Then, Henderson led a furious comeback. Henderson scored 20 of his 27 points after halftime, hitting shot after shot and dragging Ole Miss back into the game. Henderson made the defining play of the night, stealing Missouri's inbound pass, setting up the game-winning floater. Final score, 64-62. Ole Miss had pulled off the comeback, and Henderson embraced every second of it. Henderson made plenty of plays to get Mississippi back into position and seemed to thrive in Missouri's collapse. He was known for his antics all season, and even the SEC tourney didn't stop him as he taunted Missouri fans during timeouts. When the scoreboard video showed Henderson late in the second half, Missouri fans booed him. Next up was Cinderella Vanderbilt, fresh off an upset of second-seeded Kentucky. Early on, Vanderbilt led 23-16, threatening another tight battle, but Ole Miss responded with a 10-3 run and the game was tied at halftime. The second half, however, was all Rebels. Vanderbilt managed 26 points while the Rebels ran up and down the court. A 28-6 run put this game away quickly behind 23 points from Henderson, where Mississippi won 64-52. With that win, Ole Miss would take on Florida in the SEC championship game, yet the Rebels were still on the bubble according to many experts. So they knew they had to make their statement against the number 1 seed. Once again though, things looked bleak as Ole Miss were down 38-26 at half, with Henderson limited to 3 points. Then the second half began. Ole Miss came out scorching hot, hitting 8 of their first 12 shots, while Florida went ice cold. For the first time all game, the Rebels took the lead and Henderson caught fire. He scored 18 of his 21 points in the second half, and either scored or assisted on 7 of Ole Miss's final 10 points. Every big possession ran through him, ultimately securing the 66-63 upset victory. After 32 years, Ole Miss won an SEC title and punched their ticket to March Madness, with Henderson winning the tournament MVP. This villain carried them to the mountaintop, but like every true Linsanity run, it didn't last. Henderson went on to average 20 points per game in the team's 2 March Madness games, but he only shot 33% from the floor. And not to mention, the Rebels got upset second round to LaSalle. Marshall Henderson is one of those players from the 2010s you just don't forget. Not because he was polished, not because he was beloved, but because he embraced being the villain and used it as fuel. For one unforgettable stretch in 2013, Marshall Henderson turned chaos into confidence, hate into energy, and dragged Ole Miss into the history books. The 2020-2021 college basketball seasons were unlike anything the sport had ever seen. COVID shut down the 2020 NCAA tournament entirely, and the 2020-21 season was filled with empty arenas, uncertainty, and chaos. In the middle of all that, one player caught fire, and for 3 unforgettable weeks, Johnny Juzang had his own Linsanity moment. Johnny Juzang's college career didn't start with hype. As a freshman at Kentucky, he struggled to find a role, averaging just 12 minutes per game and shooting 37% from the field. It wasn't the fit he expected, so Juzang made the decision that changed everything, transferring to UCLA. His first season with the Bruins was solid, but far from spectacular. Juzang averaged 14 points per game during the regular season, and while he had some big nights, his numbers were boosted by a few outliers. But when the clock struck conference tourney time, this is where Linsanity happened. In UCLA's only game of the tournament, they took on 5 seed and eventual Cinderella Oregon State, where the Bruins lost 83-79 in overtime, but Juzang put together a respectable performance with 12 points on 50% from the field. Sitting at a record of 17-9, it was up in the air if UCLA were going to make March Madness. Eventually they did, but they did so as one of the final 4 in, meaning they were going to have to play in the first 4. And here is where his Linsanity started to rise. UCLA's season came down to one game against Michigan State. At halftime, the Bruins trailed by double digits, with Juzang having just 6 points. Then everything changed. Juzang came out firing, making 3 3-pointers, a pull-up jumper, and some clutch free throws. Shot after shot, he dragged UCLA back into the game. The Bruins forced overtime. Juzang scored the first 4 points of overtime, putting UCLA up for good after opening the extra session, as the Spartans would never get closer than 3 points the rest of the way, meaning UCLA won 86-80 to officially make March Madness. UCLA earned the 11th seed, having to face 6th seed BYU opening round. Juzang announced himself to the country. He poured on 27 points, shooting 62% from the floor, leading UCLA to a stunning upset. The Bruins were alive, and now people were paying attention. The next 2 games were a little slower on Juzang's end. With a 20-point blowout to Abilene Christian, he only put up 17 points, and in an overtime victory against Alabama, 13 points was all Juzang could muster, where he even fouled out. In the Elite Eight, UCLA faced Michigan in a low-scoring grind, and this time, Juzang carried everything. In the first half, he scored 18 of UCLA's 27 points. In the second half, he added 10 more of UCLA's 24. 28 points total, nearly 55% of the Bruins' entire offense. Michigan had 2 chances to win the game at the buzzer, where both were missed. UCLA was heading to the Final Four. Final Four arrived with it becoming an all-time classic versus Gonzaga, where Juzang was coming in as the tournament's leading scorer. UCLA's offense surged early, and the Bruins went into halftime shooting 57%, with Juzang adding 15 points, but UCLA was still down 45-44. Gonzaga built its lead to 7 points in the second half, but the Bruins eventually pulled back ahead on Juzang's jumper. Corey Kispert knocked down a 3-pointer to give the Zags a 1-point lead at 75-74, but UCLA fans erupted on the next possession as Juzang knocked down a 3-pointer to make it a 2-point Bruins lead. It was a back and forth all the way to an 81-81 game with UCLA possession. Juzang brought the ball up, drove to the rim, a whistle, an offensive foul. A controversial call sent the game to overtime. In overtime, Gonzaga got the best of the Bruins, where Juzang made a game-tying jumper, but Jalen Suggs hit one of the greatest shots in college basketball history. During his run, Juzang put up 24.8 points per game and ended with being an all-tournament selection. UCLA went from the first 4 to the Final Four, from an afterthought to the biggest stage in the sport. Johnny Juzang delivered one of the most unforgettable March Madness runs of all time. Just pure, unfiltered Linsanity. And there you have it, 3 perfect examples of Linsanity runs in the history of college basketball. That's what Linsanity is all about. The kind of magic you can't predict, the kind you can't coach, and the kind you never forget. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, the subscribe button, and hitting the bell notifications. Thank you.